So we get started? All right. Good evening, everybody. It's 6:30 on July 11th. Shall we have a roll call, please?
Dion Bailey.
Present.
Karen Desai.
Here.
Maureen Toms is absent excused. Jerry Parsons.
Present.
Devin Murphy.
Here.
Tiffany Grimsley is running late.
All right. Shall we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Is anybody interested in approving the agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. Do we have any public communications? All right. Should we move to the consent calendar, 1.0?
I make a motion that we approve the consent calendar as is.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the consent calendar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. That brings us to 2.0 with 2.1, nomination of Westcat board officers for FY 24-25. Nominations, election of board chair and vice chair for FY 24-25.
I'd like
I
to,
believe we start off with chair, don't we? Nomination of chair?
I nominate you,
Oh,
Tom Hanson.
you sure?
Chair, yes.
Positive? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh, thanks. All those, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Me. And abstentions, none? All right, so thank you very much. So nominations for vice chair.
Mr. Chair, I nominate, I guess right now you're vice chair, I guess.
Yeah.
But, I nominate Tiffany Grimsley, Hercules.
I'll second that.
All right, motion is second for Tiffany Grimsley for vice chair. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. That brings us to 2.2, authorize general manager to procure 3 replacement over-the-road coaches through the State of Washington Procurement Cooperative Agreement at the cost not to exceed, is that $3.35 million. Mr. General Manager.
Thank you. So we do have a need to purchase 3 additional MCI over-the-road coaches, which is basically what we run on our Link service. You know, over the last couple of years, we've used a number of particularly old vehicles on the service as kind of spares within our fleet plan. But as we've carried on doing that, you know, we've kind of got to the end of the useful life of those really old spares. Two of them were originally Golden Gate Transit vehicles from 1996 and 1999, and then we actually retrofitted 2 vehicles to make them more coach-like. They were actually just regular 40-foot vehicles, but they're both from 2000 and 2003. So, you know, at this point, they've served their purpose. They're well beyond their useful life. So as we've retired those over the last year and a half, we've got enough vehicles to run the Link service, but we don't have any spares. So we're kind of at that point where if a vehicle goes down, there's a potential issue. We'll happen to use occasionally some 40-foot vehicles. So I think we've identified a real need within our fleet to get these vehicles in the system just to kind of keep the Links operational with this size vehicle. So I think we still do need these larger vehicles on a number of the trips that we make on the Links. So as part of the regional transit capital priorities program that MTC runs, these vehicles have been identified for replacement in previous cycles. So I think they were identified for replacement in 2021 and 2022. So we did receive federal dollars to kind of make this purchase. As we talked about when we purchased the Gillig vehicles and some of the other vehicles, the amount of federal money that we're getting is not the amount of federal money that we were once getting for vehicle replacements. We used to get around 80% of the cost. As vehicles have gone up and as we are now 2 years behind in our cycle of when we received the federal funds, it's pretty much divested to about 50% with this particular purchase. The one good news is we're not looking to use any of our reserves to make it the local match for this purchase. Under the Regional Measure 3 programme, which was developed a couple of years ago, one of the programme categories that we were awarded funding in we programmed money for local match or for vehicle replacements exactly for this type of purchase. So we have more than adequate funds in our regional measure 3 to cover the local match, and that's what that program is designed to kind of help us do. So we're not looking for any of our reserves to be used. It will be. I did list a number of other potential fund sources which we would use if depending on timelines if we have, but the plan would be to use the FTA 5307 funds and the RM3 funds, and it's pretty much a 50-50 split. So if I get authorization to proceed with this today, I believe the quote and all of the specs were actually included in the packet. We have a semi-formal agreement with MCI that we could potentially have these vehicles within the next 6 to 8 months, which is a really quick turnaround for vehicle purchase in this day and age. So, we work closely with them on the bid to get our specs in place. So, hopefully we can move forward on this project and get those vehicles here and kind of relieve some of the pressure on our maintenance staff at the moment. We're just keeping the vehicles that we have just out on the road. So that's my report.
Are there any questions of the report? Oh, very good. All right. Would you like to make a motion to give the general manager ability to buy the 3 buses?
So moved.
Got a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second for item 2.2. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. That comes to 2.3, authorize general manager to finalize and enter into a 3-year service agreement with Tyler Technologies for the purchase of and setup of new financial accounting software and amount of not to exceed $90,000. All right, Mr. General Manager.
Thank you. So I'm going to give a bit of background as to how we got kind of where we are today with this potential procurement. For a long number of years, as the staff report kind of points out, we had a bookkeeper on our staff, and then we actually contracted out with a separate accountant, a CPA, who did all this work remotely for us, and used a particular software that she'd been trained on that she liked to use. So when our bookkeeper left in 2021, and then our accountant retired at the same time, that's when Yvonne moved up into the CFO position, and we hired Deborah Harris as our finance manager. So we kind of completely changed how we did our finances. So we started working with the current software that we had, and as we've developed our own practices, our own way of doing our routines, and Deborah's set up a lot of procedures in place of how we run our accounting system. It's fairly obvious that the system that we've been using for 20, 30 years is inadequate. It doesn't have the necessary details, the ability to do things within the software. There's a lot of elements that we have to do manually in Excel spreadsheets, completely separate than our accounting software. And then I think one of the biggest issues is any time that we run into any issue with the software or we need to involve tech support, it's non-existent. I'm sure Rob, our IT, can explain how many times he's been on hold for like an hour and a half, get through, start working with the technician, and then they hang up on you as they get to a point, and so then you have to go back and start the whole process again, which can often lead to a day, 2 days without access to our accounting software. So we did make the decision to go out and speak to other vendors, to other software companies, to see what was available out there. Yvonne, Deborah, and Rob kind of met with 3 different firms to kind of see what they could offer. And I think the reality is most things out there, while they may have improvements to what we have used in the past, they're still out of the box, cookie cutter kind of solutions. They're not really tailor built for what a transit agency would need. So I've gone through that process. I think it was determined by both Yvonne, Rob, and Deborah that Tyler Technologies would provide us the options that we needed going forward. It would make one of the other items is during our last audit, we were called out for some of the security procedures, and the current software was not able to provide what our auditor was recommending in terms of how our accounting system was run. So we have worked with Tyler Technologies to give us a quote. We're still finalising what that quote will actually look like in terms of the initial setup, and then we do know what the annual subscription cost is. And I think the important thing to note is the annual subscription cost is very much in line with the three proposals we got. They're all roughly around the same amount of money. And ironically, they're also very much in line with what we used to pay our old CPA for the outside work. So it's, we've brought everything in-house, but I think what we're looking for in this software is about the same, annually is about the same cost. So the reason for the 90,000 is just to give me the limit to finalise the contract with Tyler Technologies in terms of the initial setup. We need to go through and look at some of the additional add-ons that they're proposing and determine if we really need them. So we don't anticipate that it will be $90,000, but that's kind of where they're all in. If we want everything that they offer kind of comes in at, and I think we're then going to go back and fine-tune that with them and sit down and go through the individual line by line and look at, okay, do we need this now, or could this be added on next year, or down the road. So with that, that's kind of the end of my staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions, but anything specific may need Rob or Yvonne to kind of step in. So.
Any questions?
So Lotus 1, 2, 3 doesn't work anymore? Is that what we're saying? No, I think it's great that we're moving forward with this. So I'm ready to make a motion if there's any other questions.
If this makes Yvonne happy, it makes everybody happy.
Exactly.
You might have to find somebody that even knows what Lotus 1, 2, 3 is.
So just,
Please.
okay.
Well,
let's do-
I'm sorry, before you do, maybe if I could just clarify just where the funding for this comes from. So just because I think that's important. So the ongoing annual expense we did include in our budget. We have a number that's comfortable in that. Regardless of which firm we went with, we included that. We do have previously approved capital funding through previous budget cycles that will cover this 90,000. So there's no new additional ask of our reserves. It's all money that's already been encumbered for technology and software kind of purchases. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Right, so I'll make a motion that we authorize the general manager to finalize and enter into a 3-year service agreement with Tyler Technologies for purchase and setup of new financial software in the amount not to exceed $90,000.
All right. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. That brings us to committee reports. 3.1, General Manager's Report.
Okay, so this meeting's going quicker than I expected, I must admit. Well, so I'll start off with the really good news that I did share with the board on Tuesday. We were informed that we had received a FDA LODO grant for the amount of $20.6 million for our conversion to hydrogen project. I will say I was very surprised when I found that news out. It was actually a fellow general manager kind of texting me at 8 o'clock in the morning saying congratulations, and I'm scrambling through my phone to see what I'm being congratulated for. But we did write a pretty comprehensive application. A number of you were here when our consultant came 3 or 4 months ago and kind of gave the update of we were working with them on this hydrogen project and they were going to help write the grant. They did a really good job. I believe that firm actually won 3 LONO grants throughout the country in this cycle, which is pretty impressive. So they obviously are good at writing grants. There were 417 applications received for this funding, which totaled $9 billion ask of the federal government, and they actually programmed 117 projects with 1.5 billion. So I think it's really pleased that we got this money. It's our first grant application to go after the kind of hydrogen funding. I shared earlier with Council Member Murray that other agencies have been going after this funding for 5-6 years, putting in applications and not getting it, and we got a fully funded project right out the bat. So it's really pleased. There's a lot of work to be done. Our consultants already really excited about how to move forward and get engaged, but I think the initial stage of the project would be to completely retrofit our maintenance facility to make it ready for hydrogen. There's a lot of sensors need to go in. There's a lot of changes to conduit and lighting that needs to be done. And then the second stage would then be the mobile fueling system that would be put in place. And then the third element would be the vehicles. So part of the grant was the purchase of potentially up to 9 hydrogen vehicles. So I think that played a big role in one of the reasons we got the grant. The FTA kind of said they were looking to support bus manufacturers during this process. So I think that was a really good thing. And we've already got a meeting tomorrow with Gillig to talk about this project. They were very quick to make the phone call to kind of start that ball rolling. And then there's a larger meeting with ourselves, I believe it's Samtrans, LAVTA, AC Transit, and there's one other agency. So the local agencies that Gillig know are looking to move to hydrogen, they're starting to want to work with us right away to kind of fine-tune their rollout plan. Because I know they don't want to roll out, they want to roll out hydrogen slowly, successfully within their fleet, so they're doing it strategically. So they want to work, I know they want to work with local agencies first to get this right before they kind of spread their hydrogen fuel cell vehicles across. So again, really pleased with that. I was really happy to share the news with the board with that. A couple of other updates, the last meeting, we talked a lot about SB 1031, which was Scott Wiener's regional measure bill. For lots and lots of reasons that got tabled and gone away for at least this year. There's still a lot of discussions in the background how that will come back in the next legislative session. There's a lot of meetings at MTC amongst operators to kind of see if we can do a better job of being more coordinated in that message than happened this time around. While it's gone quiet on that on a political level, there are still things happening in the background, so we'll keep updated with any updates we have on that. Other thing I wanted to share is something I talked to Chair Hanson about this morning, and it kind of relates back to the budget discussion we had a couple of months ago and our need to have some kind of board workshops about our funding, about our service, about how we deliver service, what types of service we need to deliver, community engagement, all of this. And as I've kind of thought this through, it's bigger than just a board workshop. So I've started to speak to some consultants about doing what is turning into a cross between a comprehensive operational analysis and a short-range transit plan. So it's kind of thinking that we really need to look at holistically across everything we do, our funding levels, what those fundings what services they can provide, how we're providing service, our coverage, are there areas that we aren't serving now that we could, microtransit, all of it's pretty much everything needs to be on the table I think we need to look at. So I'm hoping to engage with the consultants, obviously bring that through the board, and then kind of have a kick-off meeting to start that process and help the board understand that this is going to be a long process. It's not going to be a one meeting, it's going to be a year-long process to go through this, do a deep analysis of everything we're doing. And other agencies do these every 5-10 years. We've never done one. We've never, our service was created in the 1990s and we're still operating it today, other than kind of add-ons we've done. So I think it's timely just to get in and really look at where our ridership is, where our potential ridership is, where our routes are going, what areas are we serving. There's been big developments in Hercules since we started the service. There are big developments happening in Penole, which we're not really serving. How we serve schools has changed over the years. I think we kind of just need a real in-depth someone to come in and help us do that. I can't do that. Me and Finn can't do that together. We need someone from the outside to come in and do that. So hoping to bring that back to the board just to develop that. And I say it's going to be a long process that's going to involve staff, the board, the community, just to kind of really get that level of input. And then the final thing I want to share is, I wasn't very sure I was going to share this, but I think it's worth honestly sharing that we are having an issue with our bus wash. Unfortunately, we developed a leak underneath the bus wash a couple of weeks ago that resulted in us, obviously we can't use the bus wash, there's a pretty significant leak. So we have engaged service of a different plumbing firm than who was used to install it to come up with a solution, because unfortunately the break is right underneath the concrete where the bus wash is. We don't want to go in with a jackhammer and take everything up to get that, so that we're trying to come up with other solutions, which I think we have one. I have spoke to our attorney. It doesn't look like we've got any real case unless we actually do dig it up to figure out what's going on. So it's one of those situations where our attorney suggests, okay, let's just get it fixed and move on. So I'm bringing that because we don't have a quote of what this work's going to cost, but it could well be above my authority. So I will, once we get that, I will probably reach out to you, Chair, and kind of have that conversation if we need to bring it back to the board, or if we can give me emergency authorization to kind of move ahead. So it's a unfortunate situation, but when there was water just pouring out of the concrete, so we had to kind of just make a decision and resolve that as soon as we can. So it's something that probably a conversation we'll have to have in the next week or so. So started off with good news, I'm ending with bad news. So it's the end of my report.
All right, is there any questions of the general manager's report? Anything you'd like to ask him? Put him on the hot seat? Yes, please.
Well, on the first item, the $20.6 million federal grant, what's the timeline that you foresee with receiving the money, and then also the maintenance facility and the different
So
leading up to the 9 buses being procured?
Sure. So I can talk through that. So we have to go through the process of actually writing the grant itself. And so the federal government shut down in September, October. So we don't believe we can start writing the grant until October, which puts us a little bit behind. But that should be a fairly simple process because it's already gone through all of that. So we've actually talked with the consultant of potentially starting work on the maintenance facility kind of this time next year. Because we'd have to go through plans and procurements, and the board has got to approve a number of contracts before we get there because everything's going to have to come through the board. But I think we anticipate the facility mid-2025, then the fueling station mid-2026, early 2027, and then that would also commence with the purchase of the vehicles. I'll have a better timeline from Gillig after this week, but initially Gillig were looking to roll out their test hydrogen vehicles in 2026 and then 2027, 28. So I think it's we also only have 4 years to obligate these funds. So it's from now until 2028 is kind of the timeline to build that out. And that's, they would be the next kind of major vehicle purchase we make, so that we'd all start moving to hydrogen at that point. But we anticipate the facility to probably be at least a year and a half. We have a lot of conduit up in the ceiling that needs to be rerouted because of hydrogen protection. So there's a lot of work to do in the facility.
Thank you. Exciting.
When is the ribbon cutting?
For the maintenance facility.
I think for our area, whether it's the facility, whether it's the buses, there probably should be some form of celebration at some point for moving to this new technology. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, I think that would be when we get the fueling station. I think that would be the kind of the kickoff, and we had a vehicle we could actually fill. So I think that would be definitely would be an event for that.
Got to make the news whenever possible. All right, thank you. So, a real quick WICTAC report at the last WICTAC meeting. I guess the big item that came up was discussion around the San Rafael Bridge. So the community in Point Richmond has been kind of upset about the blockages on San Rafael Bridge and how it spills into the Point Richmond area. So they've been kind of having a campaign with everybody they could think of, but mostly with Caltrans and MTC. And they kind of got their way, so they're going to move the barrier. But now the city of Richmond and the bike coalitions and the Bay Trail Coalition has come in and opposed to it. So it's turned in kind of a mess that now everybody's stuck in the middle of. So we'll have to see how it goes, because now everybody's got their up in arms over the fix that the people of Point Richmond wanted. So more to come on that probably for a long time to come. So that's a WICTAC report. So do we have any correspondence? All right. Do we have any board communications or items for future meetings? All right, no? All right. Shall we adjourn then?
Wow,
All right.
that's good.
Thanks, everybody.